You are not weak. If you were weak, you wouldn't have made it this far. What's really happening is simpler than you think, yet rarely understood. You care too much. You care too much about words that were spoken carelessly, too much about opinions that won't even be remembered tomorrow, too much about how everyone else feels until you forget to ask yourself a simple question: am I okay? And the world, as it always does, is not gentle with people who care too deeply. Maybe from a young age you were taught to be good, to be understanding, to be the one who doesn't cause trouble, to be the one who gives in so peace can be maintained. And you learned that lesson well, too well. You learned how to hold your words back, how to swallow disappointment, how to stay quiet even when something hurts, not because you don't feel it, but because you don't want to hurt anyone else. The problem is, not everyone lives with that level of awareness. The world is full of people who speak without thinking, act without considering the impact, and then sleep peacefully at night, while you stay awake replaying a sentence they didn't even mean to say. And that's where the misunderstanding begins. You start believing you're weak because you get hurt easily. But the truth is this: your heart is open in a world that is often careless. Stoicism teaches something deeply important. It's not events that disturb us, but the meaning we assign to them. And you assign too much meaning to things that were never meant to carry that weight. A single comment stays with you for days. One rejection makes you question your worth. One small mistake becomes a lifelong sentence in your own mind. Not because you're fragile, but because you care about standards, about relationships, about consequences. Ironically, the world often mistakes this care for weakness. They call you sensitive, over-emotional, an overthinker. But what they really mean is this: you are deep in a world that prefers shallow waters. Stoicism does not teach you to become cold. It teaches you to choose wisely where you place your heart. Because if you care about everything, you will be exhausted before life truly begins. You don't need to stop caring. You need to learn how to limit it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment about it." The world is loud. That is not the problem. The problem is that you've given the world too much access to your inner peace. Everyone has opinions, but not all opinions deserve space in your mind. Everyone judges, but not every judgment reflects truth. And everyone will disappoint you at some point. That does not mean you failed. People who care too much often carry burdens they were never meant to carry. The burden of being understood, the burden of being accepted, the burden of being good enough for everyone. And here is the hard truth: you will never satisfy all of it. No matter how kind your intentions are, no matter how much you sacrifice, no matter how often you choose to stay silent, there will always be someone who is still unhappy, still disappointed, still blaming you. A Stoic would ask one simple question: is this within my control? If it isn't, why are you handing your peace over to it? You were not created to absorb everyone else's emotions. You are not responsible for saving every relationship, and you do not owe explanations to everyone. Care without limits is not virtue. Over time, it becomes a wound, and wounds that go unrecognized are often mislabeled as weakness. But in reality, they are signs that you never learned how to protect yourself. And protecting yourself is not selfish. It is sanity.
There is a quiet pattern shared by people who care too much. They often become the strong ones in silence. They rarely complain, rarely ask for help, and almost never explain how tired they truly are. Not because they don't need support, but because they've grown used to being the place where others lean. Maybe you're the one who always listens, the one who tries to see both sides, the one who absorbs tension so others can feel comfortable. And slowly, without realizing it, you place yourself last. Stoicism sees this as a subtle but dangerous mistake, handing over inner control for the comfort of others. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What he meant was simple yet difficult. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop pleasing everyone, people will be disappointed. And that's not a failure. Those who benefited from your self-sacrifice will feel unsettled when you begin to set boundaries. They may say you've changed, that you've become cold, that you are not who you used to be. But what has really changed is not your heart, it's your courage. The courage to say, "This is enough. This hurts. This is not my responsibility." People who care too much often feel guilty when they begin protecting themselves. They mistake boundaries for betrayal. But boundaries are honesty. Honesty about your limits. Honesty about your energy. Honesty about the fact that you are human. Stoicism does not teach you to cut people off. It teaches you not to drown in them. There is a difference between caring and losing yourself. Caring means presence with awareness. Losing yourself means abandonment of the self. And many people don't realize they've lost themselves because they're too afraid of being labeled selfish for stopping. Be honest with yourself. How many things do you do, not because you want to, but because saying no feels uncomfortable? How many words have you swallowed, not because you agree, but because you fear conflict? How many wounds have you minimized, even though they quietly shaped your bitterness? Stoicism does not treat emotions as enemies, it treats them as signals. Exhaustion is a signal, disappointment is a signal, emptiness is a signal. But people who care too much often mute those signals to protect everyone else's comfort, and eventually they are the ones who feel hollow. You are not responsible for how everyone reacts. You are only responsible for your intention and your actions. How others interpret them is beyond your control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do what is right. The rest does not matter." Simple words, heavy practice. Because you were taught the opposite. Make sure everyone is okay, then you're allowed to rest. But peace does not come from pleasing. It comes from clarity. Kind people are often hurt not because they are naive, but because they give too freely to those who have not earned that access. Stoicism teaches selectivity. Not everyone deserves your attention. Not everyone deserves your story, and not everyone deserves your emotional labor. Depth is not meant to be distributed randomly, and this is something you need to hear clearly. If you continue giving without pause, without restoration, you are not being noble. You are draining yourself. One day you may wake up with a feeling you can't quite explain. Empty, yet still smiling. That is the moment many people label themselves weak, when in truth they simply never learned how to say no without guilt. And learning to say no is one of the quietest forms of strength.
There is one fear that quietly follows people who care too much. Not the fear of failure, not even the fear of being alone, but the fear of being disliked. Because at some point, you tied your sense of worth to how others respond to you. When they are pleased, you feel enough. When they are disappointed, you feel guilty. When they pull away, you start questioning yourself. Stoicism sees this as a subtle trap of the mind. The moment your identity depends on approval, your freedom disappears. You stop acting from values and start acting from fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of misunderstanding, fear of being seen as selfish. But not all distance is rejection, and not all loss is failure. Sometimes distance is protection, and sometimes loss is the cost of growth. People will come and go. That is not tragedy, that is reality. A Stoic does not cling to what cannot be held, not because they don't care, but because they understand the limits of control. You are allowed to love, you are allowed to care, but you are not meant to hand your entire self to something that can disappear at any moment. Many people care too much because they have not made peace with solitude. Silence feels uncomfortable. Stillness feels empty. Yet that is where you finally hear yourself. When you stop performing, when you stop explaining, when you stop managing how you are perceived, a quieter voice begins to surface. It says, "I'm tired. I need space. I want peace." Stoicism teaches that calm does not come from a calm world, but from an ordered mind. And ordering the mind means learning to separate what matters from what merely makes noise. Not every conflict deserves your response. Not every comment needs an explanation, and not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. You are not responsible for being a version of yourself that everyone approves of. That task is impossible, and impossible tasks produce only one result: endless exhaustion. There comes a point where you must stop saying, "If I'm more patient, this will work." Not everything breaks from a lack of patience. Some things break because they were tolerated for too long. A Stoic does not cling to connection at the cost of inner peace. Not because they lack compassion, but because peace is the foundation of all virtue. You cannot love well when you are empty. You cannot give sincerely when your needs are ignored. And you cannot keep calling exhaustion weakness. Observe people who are truly calm, not loud, not dominant, truly calm. They do not rush to explain themselves. They are not defensive. They do not chase validation. Not because they are superior, but because they have released the need to be understood by everyone. That is where freedom begins, when you stop expecting the world to be gentle just because you are kind. When you accept that some people will misunderstand you and you choose honesty anyway. When you realize that losing approval does not mean losing worth. You are not weak because you care. You simply did not know when to stop. And learning when to stop is not the end of care. It is the beginning of peace.
There is a subtle shift that happens when someone begins to understand themselves. Not a dramatic change, not a loud declaration, just a quiet adjustment in how they see the world. The person who once reacted to everything begins to choose. The person who once felt responsible for everyone's emotions begins to ask a simple question: is this really mine to carry? And with that question, life slowly becomes lighter. Stoicism does not erase empathy, it refines it. You still care, but you no longer sacrifice your peace just to be accepted. You still show up, but you no longer stay in places that drain your spirit. This is where many misunderstand strength. Calm is not weakness. Selectivity is not cruelty. Distance is not failure. In fact, this is where real strength begins. You start realizing that not everything deserves an emotional reaction. Some things require awareness, some require distance, and some simply need to be released. Mature care does not panic, it does not cling, it does not demand validation. It knows its worth without applause. And here is something rarely spoken aloud. When you stop caring too much, the world does not change. Your position within it does. You are no longer in the center of the storm. You stand just far enough away to see clearly. You begin to recognize patterns. Who only shows up when they need something, who disappears when you are honest, and who remains even when you stop trying to please. Stoicism calls this practical wisdom, observing without being consumed.
And from this perspective, you learn something freeing. Not every relationship needs to be saved. Some things end, and that does not make you a failure, it makes you honest. The right people do not require your self-erasure. They do not punish you for needing space. They do not use your kindness as an obligation. When you understand this, you stop over-explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for being tired. You stop treating boundaries like a moral flaw. You become quieter, not because life is perfect, but because you no longer fight battles you cannot win. Stoicism always returns to one core principle: control. Not control over others, not control over outcomes, but control over your inner posture. And one of the strongest postures is acceptance without surrender. You accept that not everyone will understand you without bitterness. You accept that you will make mistakes without self-punishment. You accept that you will not always be liked without changing who you are. From that acceptance, a calm emerges that no situation can easily disturb. And you begin to see something clearly. What you needed all along was not more understanding from others, but more loyalty to yourself. Not through anger, not through walls, but through clear, quiet boundaries.
There is a quiet dignity in someone who has learned when to stop giving, not because they became cold, but because they finally understood their limits. This is where the story comes full circle. You were never weak. You were never broken. You were never too much. You simply gave without being taught how to protect yourself. Stoicism does not ask you to become indifferent. It asks you to become intentional, to choose where your energy goes, to choose who has access to your inner world, to choose peace over endless emotional labor. Because caring is not the problem. Unconscious caring is. Caring without direction, caring without boundaries, caring as a way to earn worth. The moment you stop using care as currency for acceptance, everything changes. You stop chasing closure from people who cannot give it. You stop explaining yourself to those who already decided not to understand. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never built for you. And something remarkable happens. Your kindness becomes calmer. Your presence becomes steadier. Your silence becomes confident. You no longer need to announce that you are strong. People feel it. They feel it in the way you don't rush to reply, in the way you listen without absorbing everything, in the way you walk away without resentment. This is not emotional detachment. This is emotional mastery. You learn that being misunderstood is not an emergency, that losing someone does not mean losing yourself, that saying no can be an act of self-respect, not selfishness. And most importantly, you learn that peace is not found by fixing everyone else. It is found by standing firmly where you belong. There will still be moments when you care deeply, when your heart opens, when you feel more than others seem to. That is not a flaw. That is your humanity. But now you know how to return to yourself. You know when to pause. You know when to step back. You know when to let go without anger. Stoicism does not harden the heart. It teaches it how to stay warm without burning itself out. So, if you are listening to this and you feel tired, not physically, but quietly tired, let this be your reminder. You are not weak. You are not failing at life. You are simply learning how to care without disappearing. And that lesson, once learned, changes everything.